There are between 100 and 125 different taxes in Australia, depending on how you count them, and all of them are extortion. Extortion being defined, of course, as the practice of obtaining something, especially money, through force or threats. And if you doubt that taxes are indeed raised under the threat of force, see what happens when you stop paying. But whilst all taxation is extortion, not all of it is equal extortion. And there's one particular tax that stands out to me as absolutely the worst tax in Australia. Not because it's the largest, but because it is the most perverse, doing massive harm to the Australian economy. And in our high-speed internet, globally connected world, the harms being done by this tax to ordinary Australians are only increasing with time. Which tax am I talking about? It's payroll tax, and even by the appallingly low intellectual standards of Australian politics, this tax is exceptionally dumb. And it is destroying Australian jobs as well as small and medium businesses far more than you realise, and it is costing us far more than money. My name is Topher Field. This is the Topher Project, and I help busy people like you to understand the world around you. And in particular, I draw attention to issues and angles that I believe are important, but are not yet being recognised or spoken about enough. And we absolutely need to talk about payroll tax because this is an unrecognised worm gnawing its way through the Australian economy and eating us from the inside out. I am 100% viewer supported, so I'm super grateful to everyone who supports the Topher Project and makes it possible for me to keep doing what I do every day. You can buy me a coffee via the button on my website, topherfield.net, or if you haven't yet bought my books, check them out at goodpeoplebreakbadlaws.com. There is my very first best-selling book, Good People Break Bad Laws. This is all about the role of civil disobedience in the modern age, drawing from history, political philosophy, and from my own personal experiences on the front lines of the pushback against the human rights violations of Premier Daniel Andrews in Victoria as he turned my home city of Melbourne, Australia, into the most locked down city in the world. Then there is my second book, Good Christians Break Bad Laws. This is also a bestseller, and it's all about the theology of civil disobedience and why, if you're a Christian, you have a responsibility to be among the first to stand up against your government when it oversteps its God-given boundaries. Then there's my multi-award-winning documentary, Battleground Melbourne, available on DVD, plus a range of different designs of merch, including this 832 design, which says, "The truth will set you free" on the back. And there's heaps more. Head to goodpeoplebreakbadlaws.com and support me by buying my books, DVDs, and merch to keep the Topher Project going. Okay, payroll tax. What is it? What makes it so bad? And why do I blame this tax in particular for destroying small and medium businesses as well as Australian jobs? Well, payroll tax is a state-level tax which is added to the cost of employing people. It's literally a tax on the value of the business's payroll. It varies a little from state to state, but most small businesses and all medium businesses, and certainly every large business, is subject to this payroll tax. And it adds typically 4%, but as much as 7.5% to the cost of employing staff. Now, many people aren't aware of payroll tax, or if they are, they think it just applies to the biggest of big businesses and multinationals. But that is not the case at all. The payroll size at which payroll tax kicks in does vary from up to $2 million a year employee payroll size in the ACT, down to as small as a $900,000 a year payroll size in Victoria, which means that in Victoria, any business with more than 12 full-time staff, assuming that their average salaries are the same as the median Australian full-time salary, is subject to this payroll tax. And given that the Australian Bureau of Statistics says that a small business can have up to 19 employees, and the Australian Taxation Office says that a small business is any business with a turnover of less than $10 million a year, that means that there's a lot of small businesses paying payroll tax in Victoria, and certainly any medium-sized business is going to be paying payroll tax pretty much no matter where they operate in Australia. But so what, right? I mean, businesses make money, so they should pay their fair share of taxes, right? Well, that is a much bigger conversation, but let's assume that there is such a thing as a fair share that the government should be allowed to steal from you. To tax from you. It should be obvious that we would want those taxes to do as little harm to the economy as possible for the amount of revenue that they raise. You see, people change their behaviour in response to changes in costs, and taxes are just another cost. In fact, there's taxes that rely on the fact that people change their behaviour. For example, tobacco and alcohol taxes are referred to as sin taxes. Their entire justification is that by making alcohol and tobacco more expensive, then these taxes will reduce how much people smoke and drink. Literally, the rationale is if we tax it, people will do less of it. And if that's true, then already we can see the insanity of taxing employment. You can't simultaneously claim that taxing tobacco will reduce smoking, but also that taxing employment won't reduce jobs. That's nonsense. If one is true, so is the other. Now, you might say that's silly. If a company needs a job done, then they have to employ someone to do that job. What you're arguing there is that the demand for workers is inelastic. It doesn't respond to the changes in costs and incentives. But here's the thing. That can be true for some very specialized jobs. There are essential jobs that a business will pay a lot of money to get done because without that job being done, they simply don't have a business at all. But what is always true for every job is that any business has to be better off after they employed someone to do that job than what they were beforehand. The whole reason that a business, any business, large or small, employs someone is so that that business can make more money. That employee has to cover their own costs and then generate additional profits besides. And that's not heartless or greedy or whatever the parasitic political class wants to label it as. This isn't exploitation of labor. It's literally the organization of labor so that it becomes more valuable than the sum of its parts. That's literally why jobs exist in the first place. It is possible for you to get a job and to get paid money and to live and to raise your family because the person offering you the job is going to be better off with you than they are right now without you. That's why your job exists. But not all jobs are equally productive or equally expensive. Some jobs only create a fraction more value than what they cost. Economists refer to this as being at the margin. In other words, it's only marginally true that this job is worth the employer employing someone to do it. So if you increase the cost of employing people, then some of those jobs, the ones at the margin, will no longer be profitable for the business due to the increased costs, and those businesses will simply eliminate those jobs. But more than that, what's being created is an incentive for businesses to send jobs offshore. In our modern connected world, there are a lot of computer-based jobs, and well, I don't know if the government has realized this yet, but if a job can be done from home on a laptop, then it can also be done from the Philippines or from Romania, or thanks to Starlink, from a yacht in the Bahamas. And every time we increase the cost of employing an Australian, we are essentially increasing and creating the incentive for businesses to send their jobs offshore. Given that Australia is already a stupendously expensive place to do business with insanely high cost of living, which leads to completely unsustainable wage expectations, we've already created a strong incentive for businesses to send jobs offshore at every opportunity. And for many businesses, the payroll tax is the straw that's breaking the camel's back. Now, I personally know businesses who pride themselves on the fact that they employ Aussies. And these businesses are struggling. They're good businesses, and they grew. And their margins were tight because of the kind of work that they do, but they were profitable. But to really make the business make financial sense, they had to grow. So they did. They got really good at what they did and they grew to the point where they crossed that payroll tax threshold in their state. And now, with their staff now costing an additional 4% over and above what they already cost, over and above the salary and the superannuation and the WorkSafe levy and the HR department and everything else, that has made all the difference to their already tight margins. Their business no longer makes sense for them to operate in Australia. They cannot compete against their competitors in the same sector as them in the marketplace because those competitors have already moved their workforces offshore. The payroll tax is cannibalizing the Australian economy. It's eating the thing that keeps our country alive. Our absurdly high income and capital gains taxes, along with our red tape and lifestyle regulation, all of it is driving many Australians with the ability to earn money from a laptop into moving overseas. And things like the payroll tax are incentivizing businesses to send jobs overseas with them. Incentives matter, and people change their behavior in response to changes in costs, which is why I believe the state payroll tax is the worst tax in Australia. All up, the payroll tax is worth about $50 billion in revenue every year between all of the Australian states and territories. But the cost of the tax is far, far higher than that. And if you don't believe me, just walk into a fast food store sometime. You see those screens where you now order food for yourself? Australia was one of the very first countries in the world to get those screens. They tried them on us because Australia is such an expensive place to employ people. With the combination of our high minimum wage plus our high costs of employment, including the payroll tax, which created a powerful incentive for these fast food businesses to find new ways of replacing people with machines. The same thing's happened with supermarket checkouts. The same thing is happening right now with AI. If you raise the cost of employing people too much, businesses are forced to either find alternatives onshore or offshore, or to go bust. And in either case, jobs disappear. Now, jobs are being lost to businesses going bankrupt and to jobs going offshore, and whatever the revenue generated for the state, you can be sure that the cost is far higher, which is what makes the payroll tax, in my opinion, the worst tax in Australia. Tell me in the comments if you think I'm wrong, or if you've experienced this yourself and you know that I'm right, share with me your story. Sadly, I know there are a lot of you out there. My name is Topher Field, this is the Topher Project, and I help busy people like you to make sense of the nonsense that surrounds us. I am 100% viewer supported, so please help me to keep the Topher Project going by buying me a coffee via the button at topherfield.net, or by checking out my books and my merch from goodpeoplebreakbadlaws.com. Thank you for watching to the end. Please like, comment, subscribe, and as always, stay free.